Hey, everybody. Welcome to your check in with Gwen, a podcast that operationalizes healing, teaching you how to do the mental work and build daily routines that help in the creation of your best life. Whether you're rebuilding after a rough season or chasing a dream, during our check ins, I will demonstrate how to utilize the 5 domains of health to check in on someone's entire person. My name is Gwendolyn McLemore, and I'm very, very grateful that you're here. Settle in, take a breath, and land as I guide us towards the path of healing gratitude. A- Welcome to your episode. So let's jump into it. While the sun is out, I can say emotionally, I am feeling rather somber, like heavy, kind of deep, and like I'm thinking, right? I'm very much in deep thought, pensive. Um, Physically, I feel calm but also drained. I feel relaxed, and I think the absence of stress, right, of so many immediate emergencies, I feel like my body's just now taking, like, a deep breath, and so I do feel very relaxed, but I also feel kind of tired. Mentally, I am feeling reflective. I am feeling like I am thinking about the past a lot. Um, I think I am being sentimental. I think mentally I am reflecting on just my journey and how much I've grown. And so there are like kind feelings, but there's also an acknowledgement that I think I'm kind of living in the past this week. And spiritually, I think that it's kind of the same theme. Like I'm being approached to take a step into like a new life, a new world, a new timeline, but I am looking backward. Socially, I'll say I'm so-so. I think I've been doing a lot of social interaction the past few weeks, few months, and it's getting to the point where I'm about to do some traveling and go on a long journey. And I think I just need a break so I can rest up before I do this traveling. So overall, I will give myself about an 8.5. I feel really present and good inside of my body. I feel like my needs are being met. And so I feel like it's a good week. I can also acknowledge that maybe it's a week of me saying goodbye to some things. It's feeling pretty good. Always room for growth. I will say if you find these check ins helpful or if you've been learning more about yourself, please leave a comment below on this video, whatever platform you see it on. And just like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to get this message of healing gratitude out to the world. And so this week's episode is entitled All Good Chapters Know When to End. And I think that this is a culmination of how I've been feeling this week. So this year for 2026, also I started last year in 2025, I'm trying to get back into reading physical copies of books. And what I have found in particular is that I feel like books that are written these days are made to be consumed in like very short, choppy chapters just because everyone's attention span is rocked because of social media. And so I just feel as though the structure of books have changed from when I was of reading growing up. And I think the structure of a chapter has changed. And so that's kind of where I got the theme of the show from, but I think it's kind of pertinent and just relevant to my life. If you have talked to me in the last 2 to 3 years, I have said to you in speaking, I'm very grateful that you're in this chapter of life with me. That is a statement that I have said a lot, and that is the truth. I feel like your life, your entire lifespan, it can be several books, right? It doesn't have to be one. However, I think there are very clear distinctions when you go from one book and one story to the next. Some generic ones are like when you go from childhood to adulthood, childhood to adolescence. When you go from being a dependent on your parents to independently taking care of your needs. If you happen to change social groups, if you happen to move from your place of origin where you were born, if you go to college, if you go to grad school, if you join the service, if you decide to have a child, even if you get pregnant and you don't have a child, it's still a new chapter. And so I started holding that framework of this is just a chapter in my life. I started holding that framework during one of the worst chapters I can even remember, right? And so back in 2021, 2022, as much of the world was changing, I was leaving my job in behavioral health. I was leaving the school systems during COVID, and I went into working for myself, and it wasn't really materialized yet. And during that time, I went through so much stress, just like everyone else, right? But I went through financial stress. I went through social and physical stress. I went through spiritual and emotional stress, like every domain of life. I was getting my ass kicked and I was down bad, okay? I was suicidal. I was drinking too much. I was lying to the people who know and love me. I was hiding a lot of who I was. And it was just a very bleak chapter. During that time, I had to remind myself, and that's kind of where the mantra came from. Like, the first step was, have I been through anything worse than this moment? And the answer was yes, right? I had a very difficult childhood up until I decided to leave home for good, which was between the ages of 12 and 14. And I went through so many things as a small child that I just did not have any control over. I didn't have control over where I lived, how I fed myself, who were the adults in my life. I just had no control over those things when I was a small child. And I remember feeling worse than how I did back in 2021 and 2022. And so first I started thinking like, damn, you've already beat the worst days of your life thus far. And so that's a saying I say all the time as well. Any bad day in your life, any worst day of your life, if you are still here, that means you've already won it. You've already beaten it just by surviving to the next day. And I know that that might sound extreme, but it's very true. And I have to remind myself of that at times. Like, I've been through worse shit. The other thing is that the acknowledgement of this feeling is temporary, good feeling or bad feeling. The feelings are temporary. The circumstances are temporary. And you only get that level of awareness if you look at your life and truly examine it. Even if you're in a relationship you don't like, a job you can't stand, a home you don't like, even if you still have problems, it's almost impossible for you to be the same exact person that you were some time ago. Because, like I said on previous episodes, when you have more knowledge, you ultimately always have more power. And so, even if the knowledge is just things for you to avoid, and things you don't like about yourself, things you don't want to do, that's still power. And so it's going to be very hard for you to be the same exact person that you were the last time you checked in on yourself. And I bring this up because during that time period, I had to really get into it and realize if I can't save the chapter that I'm in right now, I need to start prepping for the next chapter that I want to be in. I need to have some influence on how this story goes. I need to have some input on my character development. I need to have some input on my story. I'm not just the reader, I'm an actual character. I'm the protagonist, right? I'm the main character of the story. And so I offer that reframe as you look at your life right now. One of the key components of gratitude is the acknowledgement and appreciation of all the chapters that you've lived thus far. You have to be grateful of each chapter, whether it was a boring one, whether it was exciting, whether the chapter left off with unanswered questions, or whether the characters got a happy end. Either way, you have to acknowledge the story that you've lived and you have to be grateful for it. Even the shitty parts. The shitty parts of your story are why you are standing here today. The good parts too. However, all of those chapters are what makes a good story. We don't like a story because it's boring and flat and the same thing every single day. No highs and lows, no character growth. That's not why we buy in into a good story. We buy in because it touches the triumphs of being a human being, right? It touches our emotions, it touches our dreams, our nightmares. That's why we become a fan of a story. And you have to look at your own situation and your own story the same way. Every chapter knows when to end. Every chapter will end. Even if it says to be continued, that's still a ending for that point. You cannot lose hope because your story is not completely written yet. You won't know that your story is over until it's the end. Right? We might think death is coming. We might think that these major changes are coming, but until we were there in that moment, being forced to react to our new reality, everything else is just kind of a thought, a dream. And so when I talk to people and I'm trying to learn their goals so I can help coach them towards their goals, I like to ask the question, right? Like, if you were writing a story for yourself, you were writing a story for this main character, what are some of the moments you would hope to see? For me, when I was writing my story, I was hoping to see moments of triumph. I was hoping to see moments of great strength being demonstrated. I was hoping to see my character have adventure, right? And excitement. I was hoping my character would find a version of love that just was as deserving and comforting, a version of love that was as lovely as she was. When I think about my life and who I want to be, it's not just like, oh, I want this possession, I want this item, I want this specific person. No, I don't do that to myself. I give life, I give the universe a chance to co write my story with me because that's what's happening, right? I am not the only editor in my story. The universe has to say. I like to think of themes that I want for my own character development. What will my character look like when I have great power and a great platform and I reach many types of people? That's what's next. That's the next chapter I want to get into, where my character goes on this insane side quest and goes traveling over Southeast Asia. That's actually happening, by the way. But yeah, I want to live in chapters that are not just pain and suffering, chapters that have endings that I don't understand. That's not the end of my story. And I know that because I'm getting ready to let shit go so I can chase the next chapter. So the next chapter can be written and revealed for me. Because that's the other part of the title of this episode, right? When you are writing your story, you can tell when a storyline is over for someone. And I want you to look at your own story, look at your own book, and just think like, am I bringing bullshit up from chapters and chapters ago that has no relevance to my story right now? Am I bringing up old beefs? Am I bringing up old scorned lovers? Am I bringing up past offenses? Am I carrying a chapter that's already ended? Am I trying to get resolution and retribution? Am I trying to get justice for something that's 15 chapters ago and my character's on a whole different story arc right now? Like, I need you to be able to ask yourself that. That way, you don't have to go back and do so much sloppy editing when you got to remember some shit. I do feel that some of the pain and suffering that I encounter in people today, it's because of two reasons. One, they don't look back and reflect on their past chapters with gratitude. They look back with shame and judgment. You can't look at your story with all the new information you have and just judge all the choices you made back then when you didn't know. You didn't know back then what you know now. And you have to be grateful for that. That means that your character still has some shit up its sleeve. The other reason that I find people sad and suffering when they look at their story is that they're bringing in old ass shit. I myself am guilty of this one. Bringing in feelings of rejection that, I can't hold on to a rejection from 10 chapters ago when my last chapters have been nothing but acceptance, acceptance, offering, offering, offering. I'm doing my character a disservice, and my character seems petty as fuck, focusing on something from 10 to 15 chapters ago. Like all of this new acceptance wasn't the goal. Does that make sense? I know that that chapter of me feeling rejected has ended. It's not to say that it never existed. You can flip back and read and find exactly where that sad feeling, that heaviness existed. However, that's not the pinpoint. That one sentence in that one chapter in that one scenario from 10 years ago, that's not going to be the driving force for my protagonist, for my main character energy, the next chapters of my life. It can't be. It's a waste. And so I offer that to you. The best stories, the best chapters know when to end. They leave you wanting more. The best chapters don't always have all the neat endings and answers to all the questions. Sometimes there's shit left unsaid. Sometimes there's shit you have to use your imagination for and imply, right? And so my check-in tip of the day is when you are editing and reviewing your story, where you are the main character of your story. That's another thing. If you're not the main character of your life story, baby, come find me, reach out to me because you're doing it wrong. Your main story can't be about someone else. Your main story can't be about your parents, your siblings, your mother. That's not it. Your main story is about you. So, yeah, my Gwen's guidance tip of the day, my check-in tip of the day is to become an editor to your life story, and your pen should be gratitude. Nah, that's cheesy. But real shit. Like, become an editor to your life story, and when you are looking back at the story thus far, you can have a lot of feelings, but make sure you have gratitude for yourself. all your circumstances, all of your learning, all of your mistakes, all of your gifts, all of your wrongs, everything that has happened to you in your life thus far has brought you to this point. And that is nothing short of a miracle. There is nothing else to do but think on that fact and be grateful. And when you look at your current life, be grateful that this is my chapter right now. It's not going to be my chapter for the rest of my life at all. And so when you're planning for the rest of your life, when you're planning for your next chapter, do some inventory and make sure you're not bringing old ass shit, old ass small sentences from many chapters ago, small pains from many chapters ago. Like, make sure you're being present. Give yourself your best shot. So, so if you are prone to journaling, I think that that is an amazing journaling prompt to ask yourself, what will I call this chapter? And when is this chapter over? What signifies that this chapter is done? And what's one thing you're grateful for from your last few chapters? That way you can make sure you're looking at your life with the reverence that it deserves. And all that word means is that you're looking at your life with the admiration that your life deserves, even if it's been a hard one, even if you've hated it thus far, it still deserves admiration because you hated your life and you still kept living, which is dope. So this one's just a motivational check-in. I am rooting for you always. I am always fucking rooting for you. And if there's anything that you want advice on, if you feel as though you want my perspective on anything that's going on, please feel free to reach out. You can email me. You can leave a comment on my videos. I will see them. And yeah, I am just checking in on you and putting that battery in your back. I'm sending you love, light, and gratitude for spending some time with me. Remember to check in with yourself and to be gentle. Check in with a loved one, a stranger, and I'll be here to check in on you next week. With gratitude always, Gwen.